Salve omnis, and this is second part of Creepypasta Iceberg chart. So, let's go. Candle Cove. Chris Straub, a novelist and web cartoonist, wrote Candle Cove, an online creepypasta horror tale. The plot revolves around an online forum debate about the titular imaginary children's television series. Straub claims that he was inspired to make the creepypasta after reading a story in the Onion headlined "Area 36-year-old still has occasional Lidsville nightmare." Straub's narrative immediately gained popularity, sparking countless YouTube videos and fan fiction. Straub self-published Candle Cove in 2015 as a collection of short tales titled Candle Cove and Other Tales. Candle Cove, according to The Verge, differed from other creepypastas in that it stemmed from a recognized source and author, whereas other creepypastas have an anonymous folkloric quality. Synopsis. The plot is told through a thread on the fictitious Net Nostalgia forums, where a group of users discuss an unusual low-budget children's television show, Candle Cove, that they all remember watching on Channel 58 in the Huntington-Ashland metropolitan area as children in the early 1970s. The plot revolves around Janice, a little girl who fantasizes of being friends with marionette pirates. As the users continue to reminisce, they recall more disturbing details about the show, such as a character known as the Skin Taker, a skeleton pirate dressed in children's skin, and an episode in which the puppets flailed and screamed while Janice cried. The narrative concludes with a user noting that he just asked his elderly mother in a nursing facility if she recalled the program. She answers that every time the user stated that Candle Cove was on, there was only static on the television, and they would watch dead air for 30 minutes. History. Chris Straub first released Candle Cove in 2009 on his website ikerfalls.com under a Creative Commons license. The website contained Straub's horror stories set in the imaginary town of Iker Falls. Straub told Kindertrauma in a 2011 interview that the premise for Candle Cove came from a satirical Onion piece headlined "Area 36-year-old still has occasional Lidsville nightmare." Fans quickly copied and pasted Candle Cove throughout multiple online forums and websites, as they had done with other creepypasta, a neologism for horror stories that spread on the internet. It was shared on the two most popular repositories, Creepypasta.com and the Creepypasta Wiki, as well as sites like 4chan, Reddit, YouTube, IGN, and Horror.com. On other forums, fans reconstructed the story's discussion as if it really happened. TV adaptation. In 2015, the Sci-Fi Channel revealed plans to adapt the Candle Cove narrative for the first season of Channel Zero, a newly announced series. The creepypasta-themed season builds on the plot, focusing on a child psychologist who has returned home to investigate his brother and other children's disappearances in the 1980s. Channel Zero, Candle Cove, starring Paul Schneider and Fiona Shaw, premiered on October 11, 2016. Reception. Will Wiles of Aeon called Candle Cove among the best creepypastas out there and a great example of using the internet forum format as a narrative tool. The Verge's Audie Robertson applauded the creepypasta, calling it a perfectly dark spin on our nostalgia for the half-remembered stories of our childhood, that realization that the things we liked as kids were much, much creepier than we thought. Anansi's Goatman story. This creepypasta starts from the first person. So don't be surprised by some moments. Here's my story. B16 be black and have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting or camping. Down south cousins suggest that we go out there to camp. No, I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the duck out of me, collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something is weird. Air has this weird electric smell like right before a storm. Like ozone. We think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello and asks us what we're doing this far back in the woods. Tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and say we're camping out. He tells us we need to be real careful out here and stick together because there was a big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. He says, "Okay, I am going to stop green texting because the story is fairly long and the format is harder to write. So we end up playing football. Dicking around with me, there's the white kid Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys. We all were around 15 to 17 and we ended up just dicking the day away. Eventually, we head back to the camp and pull out some stuff for a campfire, even though the trailers both had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock, and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail toward Tan's property. The rest of us chill. We make s'mores, drink, and kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You could notice it over the scent of the fire we had started, this really nasty, coppery smell, like right after you've had a nosebleed and it's stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that metallic, back of your throat smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or that someone left a hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailers and nothing's on, but we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path toward us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing, out of breath. And they don't even break stride, they all run into the trailer, right by where the fire is, all get the duck out of there and into the trailers. They end up calming down, even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower, so my other cousins say fuck it and are about to go outside to get the generator out of a shed between the trailers. Tanner goes, "Duck, no. Lock the front door, ain't nobody else going outside." He's been crying too, his eyes are bloodshot and puffy and his pants are dirty as shift. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had been ripped up and half-eaten. They assumed it was just some big cats or coyotes, even though they don't usually duck with live animals. Tanner went upstairs, packed his stuff, and told his dad they would be okay without the rifle, because coyotes avoid people. Then they started walking back toward where we were camping. Rooster finally stops crying and shaking, the girl already had, but was now just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they had gotten halfway into the woods toward the camp when they'd started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the duck it was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail. They all beamed their flashlights over there and there was someone standing in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them and what a dick he was. He says that's when he realized that the guy was facing away from them. They keep walking, and they start smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they look off into the forest on the opposite side, and there's a dude standing there too, backward, slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking and Tan keeps going. I should have taken the duckling rifle. As they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong, even inside the cabin. They say that after they started walking faster, a kind of low gibbering had began coming from both sides of the wood. As they booked it back to the trailer, the girl said she flashed her light out to the side of them and saw something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track. Then they just flat out ran as hard as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to duck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with a native kid that was telling him about the goat man or some shift. We promptly tell him to shut the duck up because we don't need any spooky talk right now, but he just keeps going on and on about how it's the duckling goat man, and how we're in his woods and blah, blah, blah. Now at the time, I had never heard of this goat man or any of that, But then a couple years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a Menem for a roommate and I ended up asking him about it. And to sum it up, it's basically a duckling man with the head of a goat, and he can shapeshift and get among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like the Wendigo. It's bad mojo to even talk about, and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin is going, the goat man's going to get in and duckling get us. The girls are all terrified and my cousins and I are all duckling trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or an animal. All of a sudden, the smell just goes away. To this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Obviously, smells usually fade away or lessen, but it literally was just there 1 second and not the next. So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10. We've stopped shifting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some assholes trying to duck with us, so we don't go back home, because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else weird happens that night. We stay another night, and for the main part of that night, nothing happens. But at about 1 in the morning, we're outside getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone is finishing some too spooky story, I don't remember what about the smell comes back. It's so duckling strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up, and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside and that this isn't right, we should have just duckling left. We all go back inside, and we're standing around. My cousin keeps going on about how it's the goat man. My other cousin Rooster tries to shut him the duck up, and all the while, I'm just feeling that something is wrong, and I can't figure out what the duck it is. End up sitting in there for a while. The smell is just as strong, and we're terrified and all huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everybody because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats. We have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog, then get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I got 2 brats and everybody else only got 1, and I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were only 12 brats, and that if he wanted more, he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming. Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out. She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up what the duck is wrong. Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart duckling sink. I run the duck out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everybody books it out. One of my cousin's friends asks us what the duck was wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shift you not, my cousin verified. There had been 12 people in the cabin. But being that everybody didn't really know each other well, nobody had noticed the whole duckling time that there was an extra person. And then I realized earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. You know how when you're just digging around having a good time that you don't sweat the small shift, and you don't always keep track of certain stuff? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us, and that they had been there for at least a duckling day, eating with us. What makes it worse is that I couldn't figure out who it was, because I don't think anyone ever actually interacted with the other person / the goat man. The girl kept praying to Jesus and we're all sitting outside. Eventually, we get big pass sticks and go back in the cabin, but there's nobody in there. We count again, and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the duck happened. The girl says that she realized too, and that when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard, leaned over toward her, and said something she couldn't understand. So we are pretty much scared as duck as we huddle together, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing our shit up. They all want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the one that the goat man had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says she just wants to go home and that she doesn't want to be out in the woods alone for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin and it's my uncle's and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I definitely didn't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get a rifle and says he's going to be back, so there are just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., he hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely duckling antsy. The only reason I stopped begging them to leave was because he went to get a gun. At about 5:30 p.m. or so. The one cousin that did stay says that the girl Kira is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so duckling scared, why the hell would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the whole time, the coppery smell has been gone. Now I realize I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them. Everybody, and these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods after we had the goddamn goat man in our midst, is laughing at me and asking if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, I'm not duckling bullshitting you at all right now. I ask them why the duck would I play like that, so one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how the duck to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize there was not a duckling sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like late September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but super chilly some days too. And you could usually hear big pass geese honking, or some kind of birds or squirrels chit-chatting. Step out the door and tell the girl to come back in the duckling trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into it and we lock the duckling door. We pull down all the shades except one, and put a guy there in a chair to watch Kira. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. Eventually, the guy turns to say that she's still there, and there's a huge duckling bang on the door. All jump the duck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super duckling loud. My cousin is holding one of the girls, the other 2 are kinda giggling with nervous laughter, and me and the other 2 guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming. Let me the fuck in, stop duckling playing. We go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't till he was almost halfway to the trailer that he'd realized she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin, thinking it would open. When he got to the door and it was locked, he turned and it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around the room and then gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and whispers in my ear, "You know there are only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling where your stomach drops to your nuts. It had been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where, and then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day. It had just slipped right back in. Look out the window and there is nobody there. So we recount, and then I go over and ask everyone how many people were here earlier. And everybody says 8. I say, well, how many are here now? They all do the count and realize there are now only 7 people in the cabin. Tan had brought back a couple boxes of ammo and his rifle. He had told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think he would believe him if he said it was the goat man. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours and that in the morning, we can all go back to his place, and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really duckling terrified. But I at least feel better because we can be American and shoot the duck out of whatever it is if it comes back. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them. She's getting really scared and thinks I'm not funny. He keeps telling her I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it's really the Goatman, how do we know that this is the real Tanner and that Goatman just didn't kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we get into a huge fucking argument about this, where me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger, because at the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our duckling trailer without us knowing and mingling with us, and at worst, something bad is in the forest duckling with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now, and we're trying to tell her we shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. 1999. 1999, also known as Caledon Local 21 or Mr. Bear's Cellar, is a creepypasta story that was released between 2009 and 2011. Will be a full story here so you can draw your own conclusions. The year is 1999. That sentence brings me back to my senior kindergarten class when I was 5 years old, where we used to read out the date on the blackboard every single day. The year 1999 exists as a stain in my mind, however, as a memory that will not go away no matter how I try to forget it. 1999 marked the year I lost my first tooth, my first time on a plane, and unfortunately the early loss of my childhood innocence. That one memory that refuses to be wiped. It all started with that new, or old, TV. At that time Pokemon was the latest fad to hit the school. Pokemon cards, games, stickers, and the most popular, the TV show. So, of course, every time I came home from school, I would stay glued to the TV until Pokemon came on at 5. The only problem was that my dad watched the news at 5:30, and Pokemon episodes were back to back, which meant I had to miss an episode every day, something I whined on and on about. My dad got tired of hearing me complain every day. That must be why he went and bought another TV. My dad put the TV he bought in my room. Unfortunately, it was just an old, small boob tube, with rabbit ears even. It also only had 20 channels available, not including the channel Pokemon was on. I recall I didn't care, though. I was just thrilled I had my own TV in my room. After surfing through the channels, I came to the conclusion that only Channel 2, TVO Kids, was worth watching, so I watched that for a while. It wasn't for another few months until I discovered Channel 21. One day in April, I was flipping through the channels, trying to see if Pokemon was on. I pressed Channel 21 into the remote, hoping there were more channels, and to my delight there was. My dad was surprised too, but he let me watch it because it seemed to have kids' programs on. The channel was called Caledon Local 21, and later I found out it was indeed broadcasted from the town of Caledon, Ontario, a town very close to my city. The shows I saw on Caledon Local 21 looked poorly made, and I never understood what was going on in them half the time. However, as I grew up, every time I thought of that channel, I realized more and more how messed up the shows were, and I had to ask myself, what the fuck was I watching? The following is a list of shows and episodes I remember seeing on Caledon Local 21. How I remember such detail even disturbs me, but I guess things like this stand out in your mind for a while. The channel only ran a few shows, probably because it was only operational between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. April 1999. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 12, very sketchy name if you were to look at it nowadays. The show featured a guy wearing a bear mascot costume who would get a new visitor into his cellar every day. It was always a kid. The show was filmed with a camcorder, and not a very good one either. The police asked me a lot of questions about this show. This episode started with Mr. Bear sitting at a table playing checkers by himself. He sat there playing for a bit until there was a knock on the door. The camera was then looking up the stairs at the door, where there was another knock. Mr. Bear climbed the stairs and opened the door to reveal two young children. One was a boy about my age, and the other was a girl who looked about 8. Mr. Bear danced in delight, and then started talking to the kids. I couldn't hear any of them that well, I remember. Mr. Bear then led the kids into the cellar, which was quite dark, only lit by a small oil lamp on the table. I can't really remember that much more, except him singing a song which I couldn't hear too well either, probably because of that large bear mask. The episode ended with them playing hide and seek, with the kids hiding in a closet and Mr. Bear counting. May 1999. Soup and Spoon. I don't think this was even a show, I think it was more of a special movie thing. All I know is I stopped watching Caledon Local 21 for a while because I thought this show was too stupid, especially since Pokemon now came on at 4:30 and 5 o'clock. I don't remember much of this, but it showed a can of soup and a spoon both attached to strings, swinging back and forth, as if someone was holding them and dangling them in front of the camera. Interestingly enough, the show was shot in a basement, which looked just like the one used in Mr. Bear's cellar. Like I said, I can't remember much, the only thing I can remember clearly was the end. The entire thing was only half an hour, and just included stuff I found stupid, such as the spoon chasing the soup around trying to eat him. The ending showed a table and about 7 kids sitting around it, each with a bowl of soup in front of them. They were sitting and looking at the camera, but with confused, almost frightened faces. The cameraman then held the can of soup in front of the kids and said, "Spoons ready?" And then it just stopped. July 1999. It was summer, and I hadn't watched Channel 21 for a while, until one day when I slept over at my friend's house, and I decided to check it out again. My friend had gotten a TV in his room for his 6th birthday, so we stayed up very late. For us, 9:30 was very late, and watched TV. That's when I remembered Channel 21 and brought it up to my friend. We decided to see if it was on, and to our surprise it was. They must have changed the broadcasting time. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 23. This episode was entertaining for my friend and me, mainly because it had swearing. However, now when I think of this episode, I realize something was definitely wrong when it was filmed. The episode started with the camera on its side, while it was facing Mr. Bear, who was walking upstairs to the cellar door. The camera then blacked out for about a second, before fading in, back upright, and facing Mr. Bear. There was also another kid talking to him, but this kid looked about 11 or 12. He was talking to Mr. Bear for a while, but I couldn't hear well, again with the crappy camcorder, until the kid started raising his voice. The kid was saying how it was late and his sister had to go home. You could also hear more voices in the background. I remember Mr. Bear clearly saying, "Get the fuck out, you're not invited," with a deep voice muffled by the bear mask. I remember my friend and I looking at each other and laughing at the mention of the forbidden F word, but the episode got weirder. The kid began climbing the stairs before turning around and saying how he was going to call the police. Mr. Bear began breaking into a run towards the kid, who started screaming and running as well. The camera then cut out, and that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned to static shortly after. August 1999. I didn't want to watch Channel 21 after that. In August I grew more curious to see Mr. Bear's Cellar for some reason though. The last episode one saw of Mr. Bear was weird and had swearing, which also made me think the show was meant for teenagers. Nonetheless, I flipped onto Channel 21 when my dad was busy. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 28. Apparently this episode had been playing the entire month of August. It was studied a lot by the police. The entire episode was just Mr. Bear sitting in a chair talking to the audience. "Hello, kids. Do you want to visit my cellar? If you do, please write me a letter at this address." The screen then switched to a white screen with multicolored letters reading the address, and that was what remained for the rest of the episode. This repeated for 5 hours every day until September came. And guess what I actually did? I sent Mr. Bear, or that sick bastard who portrayed him, a letter. I did it out of curiosity mostly. My dad was okay with it because he thought it was a legit kid show, but then again he never saw any of what was on Channel 21. So I wrote a letter using my best writing possible. I think I just said how I wanted to meet Mr. Bear. So my dad sent the letter to the address Mr. Bear said on the show. It stayed on all day anyway for some reason. It took about a week to get a response, which I was surprised I did. I still have the letter I received on August 15, 1999. The letter read, "Dear Elliot, thank you ever so much for your letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, and go fire camping in the middle of the woods. Come to my house at," the police cut out this address, Caledon, Ontario, Canada. "I look very forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear." I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy, because he actually took me to the house. And then that's when the police became involved, those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids, the woods. That brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That psycho and his friends did some fucked up shit back then, and now it seems he's trying to get into contact with me again. The entire police thing is coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it is happening again. Dear Elliot, thank you ever so much for your letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, and go fire camping in the middle of the woods. Come to my house at, the police cut out this address, Caledon, Ontario, Canada. I look very forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear. I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy, because he actually took me to the house. And then that's when the police became involved, those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids, the woods. That brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That psycho and his friends did some fucked up shit back then, and now it seems he's trying to get into contact with me again. The entire police thing is coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it is happening again. Update, November 14, 2009. People have been emailing me asking what exactly happened in 1999. I will get to that. Those weird TV shows I was watching apparently were meant to attract kids to Mr. Bear's house. What Mr. Bear did shocked the entire town. My dad actually drove me to Caledon along with the address Mr. Bear left on the letter. The house was actually in the outskirts of the town, in the open farmland. I still remember that house. It looked like an older farmhouse that looked to have been built in the early 1900s. The windows were all boarded up, and the house looked in a state of disrepair. As we walked up to the house, I remember my dad checking the address over and over again and looking at the house in disbelief. Then the door opened. I expected Mr. Bear to be at the door, but I was surprised to see a police officer emerge from the creaking doorway. The officer began talking to my dad, while I quickly asked if that was Mr. Bear's house. The officer's face cringed slightly, and he muttered, "Oh God," or something like that. He started talking quietly to my dad so I couldn't hear, although my dad told me to go to the car anyway. And then we just went home. My dad was quiet the whole way home. I felt something strange had happened. My dad never told me what happened for a while. I forgot about it anyway too. Channel 21 no longer came on, and when I asked about it my dad would not acknowledge its existence. I think it was when I was 13 where I learned the truth. I remembered Channel 21 one day and asked my dad about it. I guess he finally decided I should hear the truth. Caledon Local 21 was a local TV channel that ran from October 1997 to August 1999 in the Peel region of Ontario. The entire channel was made from a house in Caledon, the one I visited, and run by a man who was not really known by anyone in the town. The channel was only available to older TVs because the signal was one only picked up by rabbit ears, weaker frequency. The man created all the shows on the channel, all of which were kid shows. He was Mr. Bear, and he was the mysterious cameraman. The real reason he created the channel was more disturbing than what was originally thought. As you might have already guessed, he kidnapped kids and held them in his cellar. But while most people thought he was a serial child molester, he really wanted to use the kids for another purpose. The day I arrived, the man had fled his house the night before, the day before the police went in for their investigation. I wasn't the only one who was watching. Update, December 2, 2009. Sorry for not answering any questions for so long. I haven't accessed my email account for some time. Anyway, let me finally set things straight about what I know. Back in October, I visited the house previously owned by the man who ran Caledon Local 21. 2 women lived there, operating a daycare business. How ironic. Now to answer the questions you guys emailed to me. Question: who else watched Caledon Local 21? Answer: I know other people watched it for sure, including those kids who wound up at Mr. Bear's house. After some Google searches, I found a few people on the NeoSeeker forums who were discussing shows from Caledon Local 21. They talked about the 2 shows I watched, but also another 2 shows I had never seen before. A user named I Am Real Life seemed to know all the shows that were broadcasted on Channel 21. Here are the 2 I've never heard of: The Fallen Angel and Life. I Am Real Life described it as a fairly boring show about a guy rambling on in front of the camera about how we must please Satan and appease him before it is too late. Paint with the Soul. I Am Real Life and another user called Siggy92 were discussing this show. They described it as Blair Witch-like, as it consisted of the cameraman wandering around a forest at night, doing nothing particularly interesting. I'll go looking for the conversation and see if I can get the link. Question: where is Mr. Bear, or the guy who wore the costume? Answer: if I did know, I would have said earlier. I have no idea where this guy is, or if he's dead or alive, hopefully dead. When I see my dad's friend next time, I will ask him about this. Maybe I can get a more definite answer. Question: what did Mr. Bear do to the children? Answer: this is by far the most common question I've been asked. I found this out in October as well, via my dad's friend who is a retired Caledon regional officer. Apparently, the man playing Mr. Bear took the kids out of the house and into the forest nearby. What he did there, police are not exactly sure how it happened, but 16 charred bodies of children between the ages of 4 to 13 were found in a 15 by 15 foot ditch deep within the forest. My dad's friend did not want to go into exact details, but I'm seeing him next Thursday anyway, so maybe I can extort more information from him then. That's all I have for now. Thanks for keeping an interest in my blog. I will try to gather as much information as I can for my next post. I've actually been getting pretty interested in this myself. It should be my right to know what the hell happened. Update, January 14, 2010. I'm sorry I haven't posted anything for a while. I kind of lost interest in this blog since I hit a standstill while looking for more information about the identity of the owner of Caledon Local 21. However, a few weeks ago, I struck gold. I found some answers surprisingly from the father of a kid I used to babysit. He lives just across from my street, and I used to look after his kids when they were younger. He currently doesn't have a job either. He used to live near the woods outside of Caledon, and witnessed the owner's activities in the woods. His name is Anthony Pollo. When he lived in the small bungalow outside the woods, he would often venture in to smoke a joint of marijuana or 2 before returning to his work as a wood craftsman. Pollo described that sometimes he would hear voices of children coming from deeper within the woods, as well as a glowing light off in the distance. Pollo told me these events started in late 1997. Note, this is around the time Caledon Local 21 began airing. He apparently became annoyed by this happening every once in a while and actually went to investigate. Pollo then described what the whole scene looked like when he got there. There was a group of kids, he said about 13 to 17, and ages 5 to 12 gathered around a large fire pit with a burning fire. With them was a single adult. Pollo talked to the man, noting his unusual unkempt appearance of a crack addict, as well as his constant twitching, and asked what he was doing out in the forest with children. The man said they were on a camping trip, something they did frequently. Pollo, not suspecting anything, Caledon has one of the lowest crime rates in Canada, simply left it at that and told them to be quieter. Pollo then paused for a while before telling me that they never became quieter. In fact, sometimes he heard loud chanting from the children in an unknown language. He didn't bother meeting with the man again, as he was moving anyway. I told Pollo that the man was probably the owner of Caledon Local 21, but he doubted it, as he heard that the man was moving to Pickering by several other residents near that area. Here is what I know now. the man would take kids into the woods regularly for camping. The fire pit Pollo described may be the hole the bodies of the children were found in. The children Pollo saw are probably the ones found dead. The man moved to a city called Pickering, a smaller city east of Toronto. I will discuss this with my dad's friend, the ex-cop, and see if this matches anything the police knew about the man. I also want to see if he has any other knowledge of what was aired on Caledon Local 21. Update, February 10, 2010. Good news, guys. I talked to my dad's friend and he disclosed a lot of information for me. First, I asked if the police had any information on the man who ran Caledon Local 21. He replied that they have only had the same leads for years and never found a suspect. However, the Peel Regional Police do have some of the tapes found in the house Caledon Local 21 was broadcasted from. He took me over so I could watch a few. I guess I haven't said much about him yet. My dad's friend's name is Mitchell Wilson, a pretty nice guy. He seems to understand my thirst for knowledge on what happened during the late 90s in that house. He feels it was wrong that my dad went so long without telling me much. He took me to the Davis Road Police Station. If you don't know, it's the largest station in Caledon, and one of the largest within the Peel region itself. Each of the main stations around Peel have some of the tapes. I was able to watch all of the footage that the Davis Road station has. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to take any tapes home for obvious reasons. Paint with the Soul, Episode 10, Garbage Thrown Away. Paint with the Soul was one of the shows that I Am Real Life and Siggy 92 discussed on Neo Seeker. I told the police about this and they informed me that 12 episodes of the show were made and broadcasted between December 5, 1997 foot and January 8, 1998. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 24. The episode started with Mr. Bear with the camera on its side, then Mr. Bear waddling over to his cellar door, then Mr. Bear dancing child, then child spoke up, then Mr. Bear spoke up, get the fuck out, you're not invited, you could hear dog voices in the background. Spoke up, woof, then Mr. Bear off camera before fading in, dog and cellar door, then dog attacking Mr. Bear, then kid runs cellar door, Mr. Bear who started screaming, the camera then cut out, and that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned to static shortly after. Exactly as I Am Real Life and Siggy 92 described, the episode opened with the cameraman wandering around in a forest. It appeared to be during the evening as it seemed the sun was setting. The cameraman walked along a path until he got to an area where there was a lot of garbage lying in the leaves. The camera looked around at the various wrappers, bottles, bags, and boxes, making sure each item got a few seconds of screen time. The camera then focused on a single area before the man spoke. I recall he spoke in a very timid, quiet voice, and I swear I've heard it somewhere else before, like on another Caledon Local 21 show. I could barely hear what he was saying, but he mainly talked about how humans are garbage, or something that had to do with saving ourselves by cleaning up the garbage, us. It actually sounded really stupid, but still a feeling of dread came over me. I mean, that forest was possibly where those bodies were found, right? Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 25. When the police administrator brought this tape in, I actually said, "Oh, shit," and chuckled a bit out loud. Of course, I got stares from the staff, but Wilson explained to them about my little experience with Mr. Bear and how I still kept the letter he sent me. Like the previous episodes, this one included a guy wearing a bear mascot costume. The episode began with Mr. Bear waddling over to his cellar door with a bottle of orange juice in his paws. On the ground were 16 shot glasses as well as a small bottle that contained an unknown liquid. Mr. Bear poured an equal amount of orange juice into each glass before opening the smaller bottle and depositing one drop into the glasses. Mr. Bear then went off camera. There were some minor sounds such as shuffling, and then Mr. Bear emerged from behind the camera's location. Following him were 16 children. Some looked as young as 4, while others looked like they were practically teenagers. As the children entered, the administrator commented that this is the only episode that showed all 16 victims. The kids all looked rather content except for this one who had visible bruises on his face, and unlike the other kids, he had a more fearful expression. He also looked about 11 to 12, which caused me to recognize him. He was the kid who had asked about his sister and subsequently met an unknown fate at the end of episode 23, that one episode one watched during July 1999. When I told the administrator this, he confirmed it was the same kid. He was also featured in episode 24, an episode that only aired once at 3 o'clock in July 1999. The police have still not found the tape. Mr. Bear then broke into song, singing about citrus fruits and how good vitamin C was for you. I could barely hear the lyrics as they were muffled by the bear mask. The kids all drink their juice, the one from episode 23 doing it rather reluctantly, and the episode ended. After viewing the tapes in possession of the Davis Road Police Station, I'm satisfied but only temporarily. I still want to know the full story. The police just keep giving me the same crap about the creator of Caledon Local 21 being a fetishist pedophile as well as an apparent cultist. I will sign off for now, get into university first, and get information later. Hopefully, I will get back to this blog as soon as possible. Update, May 8, 2010. Last month, I finally got my G2 license, in Ontario, Canada. This allows you to drive in a car by yourself as well as with some passengers after 6 months. I, of course, took advantage of this and drove into Caledon for a little Sunday drive. Since I haven't updated this blog in a while, I figured I might as well visit the house where the infamous channel of my childhood was located. The house looked different than when I last saw it in October. The place was no longer used as a daycare, and just sat there abandoned. However, it did have a for sale sign showing that someone still owned it, wanting to get rid of it, though. The abandoned house drew fuzzy memories from my mind, mainly of that day my dad took me to visit Mr. Bear. A feeling of dread came upon me. What happened to the children while they were living in that house? I walked up the steps to the front door and peered through the window. Inside I could see a nearly empty hallway with a few boxes at the end. At the end of the hallway to the right was an open doorway presumably leading to the kitchen. To the left were 2 doors, both apparently leading to the rooms visible through the windows outside. I wondered where the cellar entrance was located and whether it had been sealed up. I walked around to the back of the house and found my answer. 2 wooden doors lying at an almost flat angle were padlocked shut. This had to lead to the cellar. Not wanting to hang around, you cannot imagine what was going through my mind at that time. I departed. Behind the house, the empty field continued on until it reached a dense forest that lined the horizon. I wondered if that was the forest where the bodies of the children were found. I thought to myself, fuck it, and proceeded to walk across the field behind the house into the forest. The forest was oddly quiet, save for the few periodic sounds of a woodpecker drilling into a distant tree. I cautiously made my way deeper into the woods, not really caring about the fact that I had no idea where I was going. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like there was something I had to find. I came to a thinner part of the woods and few small houses in the distance. Pollo's house crossed my mind and I wondered if one of these homes had belonged to him. I neared a small clearing in which I could see 3 adequately sized logs gathered around a black, charred area, showing a small fire had been lit there recently. Hey! Get the fuck out of our fort. Those words nearly gave me a heart attack. I turned to my left and saw 2 dark-clothed people running towards me. My initial thought was to run, however as they came closer I saw they were really just kids in their early teens, possibly 13 or 14, maybe even 12. As they approached me, they realized my size as well. I'm 6 feet 1 inch, while they could have been no bigger than 5 feet 8 inches, one might have been 5 feet 7 inches. We said, "Get the fuck out," the larger one who was wearing a slip-knot shirt said half-heartedly. I stood my ground and shrugged. The shorter one who was wearing a Metallica shirt swung out a butterfly knife and held it in my direction. "No, you wouldn't want to," I said in a deep, serious tone, trying to sound as badass as possible. I pulled out my cell phone. The 2 kids withdrew, the one in the Metallica shirt putting away the knife. "Look, dude, we don't like people in our fort, so can you just go?" the one in the slipknot shirt said, obviously intimidated. I had no business in the forest anyway, so I uttered out a simple fine and turned before I realized I had a great opportunity. Did either of you hear of a guy who murdered a bunch of kids in these woods about 13 years ago? I asked the kids. The two looked at each other in confusion, before the one wearing the Metallica shirt answered. Yeah, everyone knows about that guy, he said to me as if I were stupid. The kid in the Slipknot shirt continued, he still lives around here, in the storm drain. My big brother's friend says he saw him in a bear costume once, wandering around the forest at night. My instincts told me this was probably a lie, and the owner of Caledon Local 21 is probably long gone, only existing as folklore in this smaller isolated community. However, as a human, the thought of the mysterious unknown sparks interest within. And where is the storm drain? I asked, just out of curiosity. I don't actually believe the kid's story. The kid in the Metallica shirt stared at me for a few moments, his eyes seemingly full of annoyance, yet curiosity for me. You're not from around here, are you? Why did you even come here? Now, I do admit I was slightly startled by the nature of his question. However, I figured I might as well explain why I was there, just in case people mistook my intentions. I told the two kids about my experience with the man and Caledon Local 21, and that I had to come to maybe seek out some sort of closure, although even I wasn't exactly sure. The kids seemed familiar with the channel as they smiled and looked at each other when I mentioned it. They also became more understanding and gave me a detailed description on how to get to the storm drain. Shortly after, I decided to just turn around the way I came and head back to the house, leaving the kids at their fort. But now you're probably wondering why I left out such detail about what the kids told me just now. It isn't because I'm choosing to conclude what I have gathered now. Here's what the kids told me in detail. The storm drain lies ahead of the kids' fort, the same direction I was heading. The drain ends at a small river, where access water is drained out. Near here is a small playground. The kids told me people rarely use it. The man supposedly lives in the large pipe that rainwater drains out of. People have seen him, although always either wearing a bear mask or the mask and a full-body bear costume. Note, I do not believe this is true, and in fact simply a myth made by the residents of Caledon. The story does not seem plausible in any way. Why did no one call the police? Didn't this guy look suspicious? And other questions like these leave the story invalid. I may visit the storm drain. Not because I believe the story, but because I want an excuse to visit Caledon again, so this blog doesn't die. With no more tapes to watch, I don't know what to talk about anymore. Thanks for continuing to support me and my blog. I know many are looking forward to more information about what happened in Caledon during the year 1999, and I will do my best to continue my research into the topic. Elliot out. Update, October 7, 2010. Wow, nearly 5 months since I last updated. I'm guessing everyone pretty much thinks I was dead, right? Thankfully I'm not. But in all my seriousness, I really have been busy these past few months, and a blog about something that could have killed me as a kid is a little low on my current priorities list. As of now, I am living in Waterloo, Ontario, attending the University of Waterloo for computer engineering. Yeah, I am a keener. As you can imagine, engineering is no walk in the park, so obviously I nearly forgot about this blog. But as you can see now, I am back. I remembered to visit the storm drain the kids from the Caledon Forest told me about. It was out in a clearing between the wooded areas, nearby a marsh. Unfortunately, I found absolutely nothing, save for a turtle that retreated into its built-in home when it saw me. I snapped some pics of the pipe which I have posted as well. Also, let me tell you, it was not a storm drain like they said it was. What I saw was a simple pipe, possibly to channel the access water from the marsh. When I returned from Caledon, however, I simply kept putting off uploading everything until I forgot all about my blog. It just didn't seem important anymore. Please forgive me. It wasn't until only recently that I am now interested in my case again. On September 10th, I received an email from this email address, returntheb@hotmail.com. Funny, am I right? Well, it gets better. I'm going to copy and paste the exact email this guy sent me. Dear Elliot, my dear boy, you see, this story may or may not be true, but it could happen. There are many slots for airtime. If you have money, you can have a public access TV channel. Some public access channels share airtime, like EWTN, Religous channel based out of Michigan, that shows Catholic-based programming but during off-air hours have independent shows or just blue screen. Cable networks have empty channels available for rent space. So the scenario of a pedo renting a channel on basic TV is not far-fetched at all. However, public access TV is widely revealed and can be terminated at any time. These are the rules for the United States, not for Canada where this story took place, so if this happened in the US, the pedo would be tracked and arrested immediately. Yes, this story could happen, but it is unlikely. 100 fuzzy hugs, Mr. Bear. Now obviously this letter is fake and sounds almost corrupted, but still, I would like to thank whoever sent it, though they could use some English lessons. Just reading this letter creeped me out, but because of it, I am now full of this new interest to continue my blog. I guess it's just funny trying to pursue the mysteries I've always questioned. Now my roommate knows about all of this. He thought the letter was real and actually seemed more scared than I was for a second. But then I shrugged it off, so he did too. I mean, what are the chances of this being real? How would Mr. Bear know all this about public access TV, and about when I went to Caledon on those occasions? More or less know my email or me still be interested in his seller. Ha! I'm going to send a reply to return Theb. Wow, just looking at the email address, you can tell someone wanted to freak me out. It didn't really work, though. Although, to whomever you are, thank you for sparking my interest back into the full matter. Maybe I can find out more about what happened to Mr. Bear, hopefully, because although I don't buy that email, a part of me still feels anxious. Thank you to all those who are still following me and have become avid fans. You are also why I am choosing to continue this. Thanks, guys. Update, November 7th, 2010. Wow, I can't believe this blog hasn't been deleted yet. I haven't checked it for so long. I have my reasons and I'd rather not discuss them just yet. It has been a rather traumatic month for me. Some of you were right, I shouldn't have gone back trying to relive the mysteries of my childhood, but I couldn't resist. It has been a month since my last post and a lot has happened. Let's recap where I'm at right now with regards to the whole Mr. Bear incident. returntheb@hotmail.com is no longer in use. I tried replying to the email but I got no reply. I tried again a while back, still no response. I've actually moved up to Ottawa, capital of Canada for those who don't know, for university, so I haven't been back to Caledon or back home in the Peel region for a while. I had my reasons for leaving, as you could guess why. I've had to make a new email account because people keep prank mailing me pretending to be Mr. Bear. Thanks a lot, guys, not. Why have I ventured back to this blog? Mitchell Wilson, remember my dad's ex-cop friend, gave me a phone call on October 23rd about a tape that was found in a branch of the Brampton Public Library. Brampton is my hometown, in case you haven't picked up on that. He claims he isn't allowed to discuss the contents of the tape with me as it is still in evidence, but he asked me to come check it out when I return home. That tape got the gears grinding again because we all know what was on the last tapes I saw. I can only imagine what can be on it. I'm guessing it must have something to do with Caledon Local 21. I guess I just wanted to say I am continuing this blog and thank you for everyone who still follows it. I don't know when my next entry will be, but when I see that tape I'll write what I find. I don't know what to expect, but the idea of seeing another tape has gotten me interested in this whole mystery all over again. Elliot. Update, January 21st, 2011. The end of 2010 into the new year was dreadfully long for me. University has been giving me the usual sleepless nights, especially since I transferred to Ottawa, which is the place to party, sarcasm. But now I'm back home with my dad in Brampton, the town I grew up in. I got home on the 18th of December and have been visiting with friends and family, or at least that's what I would rather have done. Now that festive holiday cheer that I usually have at this time of the month is absent. To answer the hundreds of emails and comments I got, Yes, I did see the tapes that my dad's friend, Mitchell Wilson, promised to show me. These tapes, however, act as a curse. I want to know more, yet I want to forget everything. I couldn't help it, I needed to see those tapes. Not only for myself, but for all of you guys who are just as intrigued as I am by that ominous man in a bear suit from my past. However, after viewing those tapes, I feel that pit of dread deep inside me once again, that feeling where I know that all those kids in those videos are dead, that I could have been one of those kids, and that humanity is a dark, dark place. If you haven't skipped this paragraph for the juicier details below, thank you for listening to my rambling. On January 1st, I called Mitchell Wilson and asked if there was a time where I could come by and view the tapes. Things were pretty slow at the station because of a snowstorm, so he said I could come down any time that day. The tapes were located at a branch not too far from me. So I braved the slushy roads and terrible Brampton drivers and made my way to the Peel Regional Police Station located at the Bramalea City Center. I met Wilson at the front desk, where he then led me up to the second floor and into a small office. He instructed me to have a seat and wait while he went and got the tapes. Before leaving the office, he turned to me and said, "I know you're curious, but are you sure you want to do this?" Of course I did, or at least thought so. Besides, Wilson's friend had pulled a lot of strings to get me in there, and I didn't want to waste the opportunity. This particular station had 2 tapes on hand. I was only able to watch a few minutes of footage, however, because the second tape was apparently too damaged to be played on a VCR. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 30, Mr. Bear never ceases to disturb me, especially after what almost happened when I was younger. This episode took place outside in a forest at dusk, making it slightly hard to see, especially considering the quality of the film, a trademark of anything from Caledon Local 21. The episode started with the camera being held in the paws of Mr. Bear, aiming it at himself. That bear mask, it looked more sinister in the shadows of the trees. The unmistakable muffled voice spoke up, "Hello, children. Today I will be doing a wonderful thing for my friends. I will be delivering them to a faraway land where they will surely be happy." Mr. Bear turned the camera around to show an ATV with an attached trailer, but what stood out the most was that the trailer contained 7 motionless children lying side by side. This here is the first load, but more will be on their way soon. Mr. Bear turned around and pointed the camera at a large burlap tarp spread on the ground. He picked the tarp up, revealing a large hole that must have been at least 12 feet deep and maybe about 15 feet wide. The rest of the episode consisted of Mr. Bear taking each kid and dropping them into the hole. I asked Wilson if they were dead, to which he shook his head and replied, "Not yet." Soon all the kids were in the pit. Some were in awkward positions due to being tossed in, but they remained unconscious. The vitamin C will surely help these children on the great journey that awaits them, Mr. Bear mentioned as he panned the camera towards multiple bottles of gasoline beside a bush. The camera zoomed into the bottles as Mr. Bear hummed before the episode ended. Wilson revealed to me that these were 7 of the 16 victims found burnt to a crisp. The gasoline is what the man playing Mr. Bear used to light them on fire. A pit full of burning children, who the fuck would do that? That feeling of dread found me once again when I realized that I could have been one of those kids. Wilson then explained to me that he had previously lied. The other tape confiscated by the Bramalea Police Branch did indeed work and contained the filming of the actual burning. However, he felt that I wouldn't be able to handle the disturbing and graphic nature of the episode. And you know what? Maybe I can't. I don't even want to see it. I'm satisfied for now, but I just need some time to get myself together. The thing is, the man who ran Caledon Local 21 is still out there. More to come soon. Elliot. Inri. Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Elliot. Elliot was a clever boy who loved playing with his friends. One day, he watched a lovely television show about a bear and his children friends. The children loved helping each other as good children should, but they also loved the bear. The bear loved the children since the children were so good at helping him and the fallen angel. The children and the bear wanted to play together forever with the help of their angel friend. But the fallen angel needed even more help, so the children had to give the ultimate sacrifice. Because that's what friends do, Elliot. They help each other. Help us, Elliot, burn with us, Elliot. I want you, Elliot, he wants you, Elliot. Come back to my cellar. Pretty please with sugar and icing on top. Mr. B. Zalgo. Zalgo is a nasty and mysterious demon. He is an online legend who has inspired several creepypasta stories. Most notably, he comes by Chris Phoenix and Zalgo Invocation. Origin. Zalgo is the creation of Dave Kelly, as Schmorky, a Flash animator and something awful goon. It was originally referenced, but not seen, in parodies of syndicated newspaper cartoons on a semi-secret area on his official website. Zalgo's reputation spread quickly from there, with individuals creating their own modifications of apparently Zalgo-fied comics, writing creepypasta stories about him, and spreading the legend. Schmorky has created various Flash animations, in his own unique style, of course, referencing the meme, including Zalgo. On August 22, 2009, Schmorky detailed the origin of Zalgo in a post on the Something Awful forums. I like how people who try to figure out the origin of the meme don't even know where it came from originally. I'll tell you where it came from. From me. I just made it up. Zalgo is something horrible. Zalgo is something that's coming. It's coming soon. It has nothing to do with Lovecraft. I'm not nerdy enough to make those kind of references. Seeing it become a meme kinda killed doing further Zalgo edits in the future, for me anyway, but maybe I'll do one when you least expect it. According to Schmorky, Zalgo's skills only apply to comics, cartoons, and pictures, not reality. This theory has fallen out of favor, as more contemporary myths depict Zalgo as a strong demonic entity. Appearance. Most people disagree on what Zalgo looks like, and descriptions differ widely. Zalgo appears in an early illustration as a jet-skinned knight in silver armor encircled by a halo of black lightning. Later in the film Zalgo Invocation, he is portrayed as having 7 mouths, 6 of which talk in evil tongues, the 7th preparing to sing the song that will destroy the world, and 4 arms bearing a dead star and a candle that sheds darkness instead of light. He's also been characterized as an amorphous, eyeless being. Because Zalgo is wicked chaos personified, all of these and countless more character descriptions might be correct. Despite the vast variances in representations, Zalgo is generally shown as red and black with a floating head. Personality. Due to Zalgo's cryptic nature, his genuine personality is unclear. It is difficult to understand what he is thinking and what his objectives are, although he is generally portrayed as a nasty, sadistic, manipulative, predatory, and misanthropic demon who appears to afflict humanity just because he despises them. Powers and abilities. Zalgo appears to have skills similar to Slender Man's, video corruption, mind control, a virus-like disease, etc., but the consequences appear to be more serious and fatal. Many who stare upon Zalgo become insane, scarred, or perhaps dead. No End House. No End is a creepypasta tale about a young guy who takes a challenge to make his way through the entire home, gradually advancing through a succession of 9 rooms, with the twist being that as he proceeds through each succeeding room, they grow increasingly severe and terrible. This strict linear format may appear restricting, but it is actually a wonderful story element for a creepypasta. Fallout 3, Numbers Station. Fallout 3 contains several in-game radio stations. The most diverse and important is Galaxy News Radio. Many players of the evil persuasion know that you can kill 3 Dog, the station's host, and he will be replaced by the technician Margaret. She is not a charismatic person and has very little to say, seeming to not enjoy her new announcing duties. She also never appears in person, and therefore cannot be killed. Once 3 Dog is dead, you're stuck with Margaret. What most players do not know is that under certain circumstances, GNR will become a numbers station. A numbers station is one that broadcasts an unusual coded message. Many of these exist in real life, some hypothesize that they are a nuclear retaliation control network. You can check Wikipedia for more information about these odd broadcasts as they relate to the real world. No one is really sure which actions are needed to hear the numbers station in Fallout 3. It appears that you must kill 3 Dog, because no one has reported hearing the numbers station with him still alive. It also appears that you have to skip over the Quest Galaxy News Radio, where you help boost the station's signal so that it can be broadcast further than just the immediate DC area. This is easy enough to do with either a speech check or by using the Fallout Wiki to look up where to go next and advance the main plot. Finally, you definitely have to destroy Raven Rock. This is the actual trigger to turn GNR into a numbers station, and will remain such for the rest of the game. However, the vast majority of players who perform these 3 actions still continue to hear the standard GNR broadcasts, so there must be several more requirements the community has yet to isolate. If you're lucky enough to have hit upon the right set of circumstances, just after destroying Raven Rock, you will get the message, radio signal lost, and a few seconds later, radio signal found. You cannot, however, actually listen to GNR just yet, because you didn't boost the signal and are out of range of the broadcast at the exit of Raven Rock. Luckily, Raven Rock is situated in the mountains, near one of the few places outside DC that you can get high enough to catch the signal. So far, the confirmed locations to hear the GNR numbers signal are 1. Within the immediate DC area, obviously, this is true for the regular GNR throughout the game. 2. At the top of the Ferris wheel at Point Lookout. 3. On the tops of some of the SATCOM arrays you can climb in the northwestern map area. 4. On the roof of Tenpenny Tower, though this may be within normal broadcast range anyway. Feel free to playtest and get back to me on this. 5. On the highest point of the broken bridge around Arafew, again, may be within broadcast range anyway. 6. On some of the highest points of the mountaintops in the area near Raven Rock. This is obviously your easiest chance to first listen to the numbers station. When you tune in, you will hear an old, familiar voice. 3 Dog, despite the fact that you killed him earlier. However, you will quickly notice that he does not seem to be in character. So I guess it's not technically 3 Dog, but the voice actor, Eric Dellums. He reads a series of numbers in a monotone, depressed-sounding voice. He always recites a list of single digits between 9 and 12 characters long. For example, 93791720034. He never uses a multi-digit number like 11 or 40. These numbers are followed by widely varying lengths of Morse code. This is then followed by the song, I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire. All other music tracks seem to be inactive at the numbers station. The Morse code was the easiest part of the mystery to crack, as it was widely available and many people actually know it off by heart. We quickly had a list of a great number of messages in English. Some sounded completely mundane and even comical, such as washed the car today, maybe Chinese for dinner, or have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts. You may be saying, but wait, YouTube doesn't exist in the Fallout universe, and you are right. As far as we could tell, all of the messages sounded like they were based in our reality, somewhere near present day. Some of the messages are quite sinister. For example, the Queen has died today. The world mourns, as on days like these, we are all Brits, or I can't believe they've actually done it. Not long left. The noise. I can't take the noise anymore. I have a pistol in the attic. Just recently, a player on the wiki forums noticed something that brought to light the meaning of the messages. He was reading a thread that collected all known ones, transposed from Morse to English, and saw the line, 12055282010. What are you talking about? You'll be missed. He discovered this referred to the recent death of Gary Coleman, and then quickly realized the numbers were the relevant date and time it occurred. He immediately scanned through the messages to try and find more examples of this apparent future telling by a game that was more than a year old. The next message he read shocked him, and pushed him to enlist the aid of others to decipher the codes. It was 94542020010. accident in the Gulf, several dead. Oil spill apparently averted. He realized this was the BP explosion, and the erroneous Day 1 assessment that the well was not leaking. From this point on, all numbers will be transcribed as times and dates. All times were given in-game in military format and remain so in this document. Numerous members of the Fallout Wiki message board began looking over the messages to see what else could be learned. We quickly found that most of the dates were from after the game had been released, yet oddly, some were from the past. 2215, April 15, 1865. He's dead, and blame will probably be placed on that actor, Booth. Johnson better not cheat me out of the payment. This shed new doubt on the official version of the Lincoln assassination. As the community quickly started piling up interpretations of the messages, the mods of the site summarily banned everyone who had posted in or even read the thread. All reference to the numbers station was removed from the Fallout Wiki, and filtering software was put in place to prevent the reposting of any relevant information. A few people, however, are trading emails, slowly finishing the translation of the remaining messages and putting dates to the existing ones. The Queen has died today. The world mourns, as on days like these, we are all Brits. 1421, March 19, 2014. Have you watched my YouTube video yet? I uploaded myself kicking bums in the nuts. 2400 hours 16, December 24, 2012. I can't believe Britney's actually won an Oscar. 2133, February 27, 2023. I can't believe they've actually done it. Not long left. They were warned, but they just had to keep pushing the boundaries of science. The noise. I can't take the noise anymore. And the light, dear God. The universe is slowly unraveling around us. I'm not going to wait for death. I have a pistol in the attic. This is actually the only message not preceded by a string of numbers. It may be worth noting that the latest date on any of the messages is 1/27, July 6, 2027. Original author unknown. Originally uploaded on November 11, 2010. The Puppeteer. The Puppeteer is the main enemy in the Creepypasta story The Puppeteer and appears in other Creepypastas. Origin. The Puppeteer is a malevolent ghost that thrives on loneliness and depression. He targets the emotionally vulnerable, using them for personal gain and power. He will pursue a victim for a period of time, gradually convincing them that the only way out of life's pain is to die. Although the Puppeteer works alone, he occasionally relies on two unwilling proxies, Zachary and Emra, for a fast bite. They will isolate the victim in a variety of ways, making the Puppeteer's pursuit much simpler. The demonic poltergeist was once a regular teenage lad named Jonathan Blake who, following a terrible breakup with the love of his life, isolated himself from human interaction. When he saw no reason to continue, he shut himself in a room and hanged himself, leaving his corpse to be discovered a few weeks later. However, Blake's spirit awoke once again, full with hatred and anger, and he turned into the evil ghost known as the Puppeteer. Given that his existence was filled with decisions made for him by others, the ghost was finally able to take charge of his own life and choices in the hereafter. Believing that a conventional human name would no longer suit him, he called himself the Puppeteer, working behind the scenes and controlling individuals in the same manner that a puppet is controlled would become his reason for existence. Appearance. The Puppeteer is characterized as being slender and tall. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches, he has an intimidating presence. His style of dress is grunge. Wearing a black trench coat, hoodie, undershirt, pants, sneakers, and beanie. After waking up as the Puppeteer, his initial light-tanned complexion had gone gray, his hair had transformed from dark brown to jet black, and his eyes were golden yellow. His initial eye color was brown. The Puppeteer has two bodily forms. He has two states, entirely translucent and capable of producing a fairly substantial shape. The translucent apparition is his most presentable appearance. In this shape, he can pursue and prey on his victims without exerting too much energy. Meanwhile, in solid form, he can only become entirely solid when he wants to grip anything or someone. This is generally used after he completes a kill. Tears and saliva smear his eyes and mouth. His arms are two expertly constructed doll prostheses. Personality. Jonathan Blake was a very quiet and introverted person, but he also had a highly creative soul. He looked after his 4 younger siblings while their parents were abroad. But now, as the puppeteer, he is incredibly manipulative, charming, and a smooth talker with his victims. He is also egotistical, selfish, nasty, and stubborn, and he does everything for personal benefit. Method of killing. Most assassins prioritize quantity over quality, however puppeteer does the reverse. He takes his time identifying a susceptible victim and spends weeks following them around. In exceptional situations, it might take many months. The more exposed they are to his presence, the faster they get depressed. The puppeteer will do everything he can to persuade them that there is nothing worth living for, and his solution to their loneliness will be the finest thing that has ever happened to them. To any outsider, the victim's death will be interpreted as suicide. This frequently leads in a domino effect, from which he might proceed to the next victim. When he gets bored, he will move to another place and start over. Reason for killing. His violent instincts arose from a lack of energy, which prevented him from functioning effectively. Starting out, he would frequently spend little time pursuing his victims and just killing them on the spot, which usually ended in him not being properly fed in the end. He gradually realized that spending more time with his victims would allow him to retain the energy garnered from the slaughter for a longer amount of time. The more sad a victim is, the simpler it is to take advantage of the negative energy given. However, his true motivation for murdering goes far deeper than just getting energy to operate. In a manner, he seeks to instill in others what he once felt as a person. He feels deceived, and instead of dealing with his bitterness, he takes it out on others, bringing them down with him. Powers and abilities. Granted, with a stubborn mentality, the puppeteer may tolerate extended periods of simply waiting for things to happen. He has never been one to rush things, even when the circumstances demand for it. As a master of persuasion, he can frequently distort the minds of victims, forcing them to perceive things from his perspective. The puppeteer is quite competent at using his strings as a weapon and an overall tool when necessary. They can pierce flesh, but not wood, metal, or concrete. Because he has to be able to maintain and bear the weight of his victims, his strings are quite robust and will not shatter easily. If the strings broke for whatever reason, puppeteer would experience the pain as if he had been injured in another limb. The strings are comprised of the same ectoplasm as his insides, so he may make them from wherever in his body. He has also been spotted producing strings via his lips and nose, which must have been quite unpleasant for him. The strings may be as long as 15 meters, 50 feet, and hold up to 200 kilograms, 440 pounds. Weaknesses. The puppeteer's ethereal appearance makes him very vulnerable to exorcisms and paranormal resistance. In theory, if an exorcism is effective, he can be confined or entirely wiped. He is light sensitive, which is why he is generally active late at night. Salt is one of his minor vulnerabilities. This part is coming to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next part, which will be released soon. Good luck to everyone and see you soon.